This is your News Source Evening Bulletin for today, Wednesday, the 21st day of October in the year 2020. I'm Gordon Mosley. Here's what we're tracking tonight. With the death toll and infection rate of coronavirus cases in the country increasing steadily, the opposition APNU-AFC is accusing the Irfan Ali administration of willful neglect and the dereliction of duty in the country's fight against the coronavirus. Medical doctor and APNU-AFC Member of Parliament Dr. Karen Cummings today roasted the government on its response to COVID-19.
The PPP regime is handing out 25,000 COVID relief, mainly to their own supporters. But on the other hand, it's acting in willful neglect, jeopardizing the health and lives of citizens. And the result is the infection of large numbers of people with COVID-19 on a daily basis. This constitutes a dereliction of duty by the Minister of Health, Dr. Frank Anthony, and the PPP regime, who are failing to deliver adequate and sufficient health care to the people of Guyana during this global pandemic.
As she did 3 weeks ago, Dr. Cummings again raised concern and worry about the large number of persons being allowed to isolate at home after testing positive for the virus. The Ministry of Health has reported that there are more than 800 persons in home isolation currently. Dr. Cummings said it is wishful thinking for the Ministry of Health to believe that the persons told to isolate at home will actually stay home.
On the 13th of October 2020, the Ministry of Health recorded 1,008 active cases of COVID-19, of which 876 infected persons were left to home isolate. In other words, the Minister of Health is hoping that approximately 9 in every 10 persons with coronavirus in Guyana will stay safely at home and keep away from family, from friends, and strangers at all times, while wearing a face mask all day once they are not sleeping. Thus, more persons become infected and die with each passing day as the COVID-19 pandemic marches on and the government does nothing of note. It is wishful thinking of the Minister of Health that he expects home isolated patients to stay at home, not infecting their families and not die, but rather he expects these very patients to foot the bill while the health ministry continues to waste taxpayers' money.
The opposition member of parliament said it appears as though the government is trying to save money and not lives by asking persons who have tested positive to home isolate. She also said it is becoming clearer that as the government moves ahead with the gradual reopening of the country, it appears to have no plan in place to stop the spread of COVID-19. More news coming up in a moment. Mobile Special and all other mobile lubricants are distributed by Sol Guyana Inc. Mobile Special and all other mobile lubricants are distributed by Sol Guyana Inc.
For all the Zoom hashouts and recipe tryouts, the world changed and we were right there, standing with you, always near, getting closer in so many ways, laughing together as we face these days. And because we are Caribbean, we've got a special insight that tells us there's no need to worry, world. We'll be all right.
But as a people we have
weathered every storm
and risen to every challenge.
Because it is the people of Guyana
that gives it its strength.
All the people,
regardless of race,
class, or religion.
We
are one people, one strength.
And now is our time. A time to rise. Together, we rise.
Mobil Special and all other Mobil lubricants are distributed by Salt Guyana Inc. Mobil Special and all other Mobil lubricants are distributed by Salt Guyana Inc. Welcome back. 3 more coronavirus-related deaths were recorded today, taking the death toll to 116. The latest fatalities have been identified as 3 elderly men, ages 68, 78, and 80, and all from the Region 1 area. The Ministry of Health has also announced that 52 new cases have been recorded. Those new cases take the number of active cases to 879, with 815 of those persons in home isolation. The Ministry of Health is currently pushing ahead with its plans to have the Infectious Diseases Hospital fully functional. There are currently 20 COVID-19 patients being housed there in separate rooms. More serious cases are being housed at the Georgetown Hospital, including the 16 who are in the COVID-19 intensive care unit. Health Minister Dr. Frank Anthony.
We have identified in each hospital a section where we can have X amount of beds. These beds would have been isolated from the rest of the hospital. We have put in special triage procedures in place so that people who are infected would come through this triage system and it doesn't disrupt the other functions of the hospital. And if you're hospitalized there, then there are a number of other regulations that come into being.
As the COVID-19 cases continue to rise in the country, the Health Ministry is encouraging citizens to pay attention to the COVID-19 regulations. Keep your distance and wear a face mask. Moments after facing a charge of forgery related to allegations of electoral fraud, Chairperson of the People's National Congress, Valda Lawrence, declared that the ongoing police investigation and almost regular charges have now amounted to harassment and no longer has anything to do with law and order. Mrs. Lawrence has appeared in court on 2 previous occasions facing charges related to the same allegations of electoral fraud, and she has been invited by the police for another round of questioning tomorrow. Speaking with reporters outside the courthouse this morning, she said it is pure wickedness.
And this is the wickedness that we have to contend with. We turned up here yesterday morning. We went to CIE for 8 o'clock. We were there on time. We were interviewed, asked the same questions. And they said that we would be charged. We asked them to let us appear before the court yesterday, since we were there yesterday morning, and my sister who will travel all the way from West Coast for Belize to let us get it over with.
The PNC chairperson added that in the court this morning a charge was called again for a GCOM employee, although the same employee was asked to return to the police this morning for further questioning. She said it is clear that the police are working to police someone.
And then this morning when the other name was calling in the court, she was at CI. Did you ever see any madness like that?
I tell you.
They sent charges to the magistrate court for this woman and have her sitting at CI. So that it would look as though she didn't.
Also appearing in court this morning was PNC member and party agent at the last elections, Carol Smith. She faced 3 charges today, 1 for alleged forgery and the other 2 for allegedly conspiring with a returning officer for Region 4 to defraud. And Attorney Nigel Hughes is representing the interests of the 2 women. He once again raised concern about charges being filed and the prosecution not being ready to move ahead with the case.
Unfortunately, the present way in which they have elected to conduct this results in great inconvenience to all the persons charged, particularly Mr. Mingo, who has to travel all the way from West Coast Berbice. Ms. Joseph, as you know, every time she has to go to the police station, has to travel from West Coast Berbice. And of course, this is a bit of a burden, especially in the period of COVID, on these people, because of course, if you complete your investigation, you have one mass interview, and then we all come to court, we deal with the charges. These charges, we believe, are without foundation, and we will address them at the time. But to have them coming repeatedly every 2 days, every week, clearly has some other intent than the administration of justice.
The Guyana Police Force launched its probe into allegations of electoral fraud under directions of the Director of Public Prosecutions. Those directions followed private criminal charges which were filed by PP Civic member Charles Ramson Jr. The Guyana Police Force has announced that it is investigating an incident that occurred this afternoon at the private residence of Chief Justice Roxanne George, when a masked man with a fake gun was spotted by police officers on duty there. The police statement said a female rank raised an alarm after she came face to face with a man near the washroom in the yard. The man, who was described as being of African descent and dark in complexion, fired a punch at the female rank after pointing the fake gun at her. Another police officer who was on duty after hearing his colleague shouting drew his weapon and went to her aid. The masked man bolted from the scene, leaving the fake gun behind. The police said the man was able to make good his escape, adding that no one was injured and no shots were fired. In a statement this afternoon, the APNU-AFC raised worry over the incident and security arrangements for the Chief Justice. The Chief Justice is set to host a case management conference tomorrow for the election petition cases that have been filed by the APNU-AFC. 7 months after he returned to the U.S. and surrendered to law enforcement on drug trafficking conspiracy charges, Guyanese businessman and former fugitive Galilee has entered a plea deal with the U.S. authorities. Can has admitted to the charges related to conspiracy to import cocaine into the U.S. Details of the deal have not been made public, but under the agreement with the prosecutors, Mr. Khan could still face at least 5 years in jail on the cocaine charges. He is expected to remain behind bars until his sentencing in January. He was first arrested and charged back in 2008, but escaped to Guyana after being granted bail. He spent the past 12 years living and working in Guyana, even establishing a security company that landed government contracts. He became an executive with the Private Security Services Association and also landed on the Private Sector Commission, all while being a fugitive from U.S. law enforcement. It was back in March of this year that Khan boarded a New York-bound flight and turned himself over to DEA agents at New York's JFK Airport who were waiting on his arrival. It became clear then that his return was planned and a plea deal was in the works. Once he completes his sentence, he's expected to be deported to Guyana. 3 men who were all on remand for murder offenses escaped from the Lusignan prison last evening, and that has triggered searches in several East Coast and Marara villages by the police and prison authorities, along with the army. The escapees have been identified as Mark Ruffino, Alex Matthias, and Barnold Kennedy. All 3 were charged and remanded to jail last year on allegations of murder related to 3 separate incidents. Police and prison officers learned of the escape late last night and an alarm was raised. Checks were conducted around the prisons and nearby areas, but those late-night searches came up empty-handed. Investigators have so far revealed that the prisoners jumped the southeastern fence of the prison and fled into a surrounding area. Anyone who may know the whereabouts of the 3 men is asked to contact 911 or the nearest police station. The Guyana Police Force has issued wanted bulletins for 2 men who are believed to have been involved in cases of fraud. In a statement, the police force said 46-year-old James Ragnott of Lenora, East Coast to Marara is wanted for questioning in relation to allegations of obtaining by false pretense. The man allegedly committed a fraudulent act on the Tappental store between January and April of this year. Police investigators are also seeking the whereabouts of this man, Munishwar Prasad, of the Northwest District. He is suspected of committing an act of fraud on another man. That incident dates back to 2017. The police force is asking that anyone with information on the whereabouts of these 2 men, James Ragnott and Munishwar Prasad, to make urgent contact with the nearest police station. Across the region is coming up next. Mobil Delvac and all other mobile lubricants are distributed by Salt Guyana Inc. Mobil Delvac and all other mobile lubricants are distributed by Salt Guyana Inc.
We all know a strong educational foundation is a key to successful learning. Global Technology combines award-winning curriculum with innovative technology and teacher support to help students reach their potential. Our online platform creates an engaging learning experience. Using any device, you can be a part of amazing class discussions, collaborate with others, and have access to virtual learning software. With our multiple payment methods, you will never have to leave home. Find out how Global Technology can allow you to learn anything, anywhere, at any time.
Been through it all.
But as a people we have
weathered every storm
and risen to every challenge.
Because it is the people of Guyana
that gives it its strength.
All the people,
regardless of race,
class, or religion,
we are one people, one strength.
And now is our time. A time to rise. Together, we rise.
Mobile Delvac and all other mobile lubricants are distributed by Salt Guyana Inc. Mobile Delvac and all other mobile lubricants are distributed by Salt Guyana Inc. Across the region right now, Venezuela plans to vaccinate citizens with Russian and Chinese coronavirus vaccines, which could arrive in the South American nation in December or January. That's according to President Nicolas Maduro. He said that older people and those with existing diseases would take priority, but that all Venezuelans will be vaccinated. The country received the first batch of the Russian coronavirus vaccine in early October as part of Phase 3 clinical trial, and the government said about 2,000 volunteers would participate. The delivery was the first in Latin America. Maduro in September proposed administering the Russian coronavirus vaccine to nearly 15,000 candidates in upcoming legislative elections so that they could campaign safely. Venezuela has strengthened diplomatic ties with Russia amid an aggressive sanctions program by the US meant to force Maduro out of office. An inspection team from Trinidad and Tobago was yesterday able to board that tilted vessel in Venezuelan waters. The team was also expected to submit to the Energy Minister a report on whether the oil storage tanker is threatening to spill over 1 million barrels of crude into the Gulf of Paria. Canada Foreign Affairs Minister Dr. Emery Brown yesterday confirmed that Trinidad and Tobago had received permission from the Venezuelan government for the in-flight and landing of the inspection team and access to the vessel, which has been reported as near derelict and dangerously close to sinking. The Nabarimo vessel has been moored in the Curacao field since 2019 with a cargo of some 1.4 million barrels of oil. International media have reported that the vessel was taking in water and visibly sinking, while local environmental group Fishermen and Friends of the Sea has since August agitated for action by the government in Trinidad and Tobago. And finally tonight, international news. Police in Paraguay have found a record 2.3 tons of cocaine hidden among a charcoal shipment destined for Israel. This other drugs had an estimated street value of $500 million. It is the largest drug seizure police have made in the South American country. The cocaine was found in a container at Terport, a private port in the city of Valletta, near the capital. 2 people have been detained, one of them a former director of a state TV channel. The police said the cocaine, neatly packed into parcels, was found in one of 6 containers. The 5 remaining containers are still to be searched, and police did not rule out that they too could also contain drugs. And that's your News Source Evening Bulletin for tonight. I'm Gordon Mosley reporting.